This is CBC Vancouver News.
They have my spectacles, they have all my winter clothing.
A rough start to a new life in Canada. An Indian immigrant to BC is still waiting for his lost luggage.
We're not here to just answer general questions or be an information line. It is an emergency line.
Flat tires, gas nozzles not working, children playing with chalk. You may not believe some of the nuisance calls people made to 911 in BC.
I think everybody will remember him as the godfather of Chinese popular songs in Hong Kong.
And remembering a music legend who called Vancouver home. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. The clock is ticking for airlines to reunite people with their lost luggage at YVR after the winter weather chaos of last month. For one man who just moved to our province from India, that wait is turning seriously painful. The CBC's John Hernandez has his story.
It's been 16 days. I have very few hopes left.
Rush Nagpal's new life in Canada hit turbulence from the start. He touched down in Vancouver on December 19th, just as the winter storm hit.
These are the same clothes which I was wearing that day.
He was immigrating from India. All three of his checked bags were lost in transit.
The luggage is probably the most important thing that can help a new immigrant survive in a totally new country.
After repeat trips to YVR's luggage graveyard, he managed to track down two of his smaller bags, but the most important suitcase is still nowhere to be found.
They have my spectacles, they have all my winter clothing, they have my PC essentials, they have my keyboard, they have my mouse, they have all my electronic connectors to they have the USB-C hub, it has some of my medicines.
Not to mention souvenirs from home.
And when you're immigrating from a new country, you are not just carrying clothes, you're carrying memories you're carrying precious belongings, gifts from family, friends.
Replacing the essentials has been costly.
I'm struggling financially because it's really hard. There's only a limited expense. There's only a limited amount of money which I brought from my home country, and then it's when you're spending in a new country, the currency charges and the markup fees is really high.
The airport says the number of checked bags has dropped from about 1,500 to 1,000.
We can certainly see that the backlog is clearing out. For example, we did have an area with WestJet where they were using parts of our terminal to store and sort bags. They no longer need that space.
Those still waiting are reminded it's up to the airlines to reunite bags with owners.
It's not your responsibility to search for your baggage. It's the airline's responsibility to deliver your baggage to you.
I want to say that everybody should be aware of what are their rights.
Rights that include compensation if bags aren't found after 21 days, a deadline that's quickly approaching for many. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
With China set to drop more COVID restrictions, it's going to mean more travel between places like China and Canada. That is said to be good news for businesses here in BC. More now from Lindsay Duncombe.
Traveling to China is about to get easier, and that should mean business for travel agent Aaron Zhang.
Because they want to go back to China, visit their family and parents, yeah.
Starting Sunday, Chinese nationals can return without the hassle and expense of hotel quarantine. A negative test will be enough. Another change, business visas will once again be processed. Tourist visas, not quite yet, but the message from the Chinese Consul General in Vancouver is clear.
We can ensure that everything is back in normal right now. Actually, in Beijing, in Shanghai, everything is back in normal, yeah.
A complication to that message, COVID infections are high. These images from a Shanghai hospital don't exactly look like a tourism ad. Because of the surge in cases, travelers returning to Canada will need a negative COVID test, a move China calls discriminatory and epidemiologists question.
This new policy, which has been instituted in Canada and the United States and elsewhere, probably will have very little effect on disease transmission.
People who do business in both Canada and China say returning to what was once normal will take time.
You know, just because they've removed the quarantine restrictions, I don't think that we're going to see an overnight increase. I think it'll take several months, but certainly this is a very positive sign.
Before the pandemic, there were more than 50 direct flights between Vancouver and China each week. Now there are fewer than 10, and seats cost thousands more than they used to.
And that's so expensive. The price is so expensive.
Aaron Jung says eventually more flights will be added. After missing his grandma's funeral and being separated from family, he wants to be on one of those planes soon. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
As we told you last night, good luck trying to find adult pain medication in BC. As Susanna De Silva explains, pharmacies across Canada say they're running very low on cold and flu meds.
And the ones that are not available are the cough suppressants.
It's bad enough having a cold or flu, but now you may not get much relief from your pharmacy.
A lot of the products we're looking for are not available, they're on back order, or they just sell out really quickly.
Pharmacist Tina Shaffey says her team never knows what medications they'll get, and what they do isn't always the right fit.
Yeah, it's really tough because a lot of the products that are available are combination products that have a lot of different ingredients in them, and we typically don't want people to take extra medication.
And this store supply isn't that bad compared to even the big chain pharmacies all across the country.
It could be hundreds of products that you're trying to reorder daily with basically on a hope and a prayer that something's going to come to you.
The Ontario Pharmacists Association says demand has soared as COVID measures dropped and colds and flus increased.
I've heard estimates that, on a day-to-day basis now, pharmacy teams are spending, 20 to 25% of their time managing drug shortages.
It's a problem that has been growing for weeks, especially on the heels of a lack of children's medications. Today, Health Canada said drug sellers had not reported any shortages of adult cold and flu medication, but later a statement from the federal health minister said his office is closely monitoring the situation as it is evolving quickly, and they are in discussion with manufacturers here in Canada and abroad. In the meantime, some doctors have had to suggest home remedies for their patients.
People over the age of 1, we can use honey to treat a cough. For decongestion, there are things like saline sprays or nasal steroids, things that you talk about in conjunction with your physician.
And even better, she says, take extra precautions to not get sick at all. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
A teenager has now been identified as one of the 4 people killed in that deadly Christmas Eve bus crash near Merritt. 18-year-old Kathy Kim Lee was traveling home from visiting her friend in Kelowna when the e-bus coach went off Highway 97C. Her uncle confirmed her death to CBC News, saying her parents were told Christmas morning. Police have not confirmed the names of any of the 4 killed. CBC News has also confirmed another victim is 41-year-old Karan Jot Singh Sodhi, a father of 2 who came to Canada late last year. If you've ever called 911 and been concerned about the wait, another call that's not an emergency may have slowed things down. Now, ECOM is sharing its list of nuisance calls. They're frivolous complaints that don't need an emergency response. Some of the gems on this list: complaining about children drawing with chalk at a playground, someone not picking up after their dog, people playing basketball in a public court at nighttime, and someone with a flat tire. The number 1 nuisance call, though? A nozzle wasn't working at a gas station.
The call taker for all this is quite frustrating because we are here to help people. We're not here to just answer general questions or be an information line. It is an emergency line where we want to help people that are in situations where it could be life or death.
The agency says 2022 was its busiest year with more than 2 million calls coming in. ECOM hopes the list reminds people when it is and it is not appropriate to call 911. You may have hit one or been slowed by them. Work crews around Metro Vancouver say they've been inundated with potholes after the sub-zero temperatures last month. The center and right eastbound lanes of the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge are now closed until 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, so crews there can repair potholes on the span. Those have turned traffic very slow. In Surrey, staff say the past 2 winters have been especially tough, with teams working round the clock to repair up to 6,000 potholes. Fraser Health has an urgent warning for drug users. It says high levels of carfentanil have been found in white, chunky samples in Coquitlam. Carfentanil is a highly toxic drug, 100 times stronger than fentanyl. It's used to tranquilize elephants and bears, and a single salt-sized grain that you saw can kill you. Fraser Health is urging drug users not to use alone and to get their drugs tested. In November, the BC coroner said it expects more than 2,000 people to die from toxic drugs in our province for a second straight year. New data from the Vancouver Fire Department is shedding light on the number of false alarms recorded last year. More than 500 calls happened at one downtown Vancouver SRO, the majority caused by cigarette smoke. But as Michelle Gassoub explains, the building's manager says there's not much they can do.
Canada Hotel on Richard Street is one of the biggest SROs in the city. The Vancouver Fire Department said in a tweet it responded to 504 calls at this building in 2022 alone. Over 300 of those were false alarms triggered by people smoking cigarettes and drugs.
The fire truck has to come here time and time again. And things could be really happening where their assistance is needed, where they could be somewhere else, perhaps saving a life.
The fire department said it will be billing the SRO, which is run by Atira, for the false alarms. Atira has been paying those bills for the past 3 years, but says there's little they can do to stop the calls from happening.
And I don't think anybody wants to evict people for smoking in the rooms, because where do they go? You know, they live in a tent on Hastings Street. They go to a camp. They go to another building and smoke.
The Vancouver Fire Department said no one was available for an interview, saying only Vancouver and Fire Rescue Services is working with various stakeholders to ensure safety in SROs. And those safety concerns are very real. There have been several devastating fires in SROs in the past year, including the deadly fire at the Winters Hotel, which killed 2 people and left more than 100 residents displaced. This man, who didn't want to go on camera out of concern for his privacy, moved to Canada Hotel after narrowly surviving the Winters Hotel fire. Every false alarm triggers painful memories.
It becomes traumatizing. You start having nightmares. You hear the alarm and you're jumping up and start heaving. My lungs start, and when I start dreaming about it, I wake up. It's just like it happened again. It's just like it happened again.
Atira says it would consider downgrading the alarms from a Stage 1 to a Stage 2 fire system, allowing time for staff to inform the fire department when there's no real danger. But increasing the response time comes with its own risks.
We saw, for example, 2 fatalities in the Winters building in that fire, and can see how it can go wrong and become a tragedy really quickly.
Something residents and workers hope to avoid. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Tributes are pouring in for a Hong Kong music legend who called Vancouver home. Composer Joseph Koo Fai, dubbed the godfather of cantopop, has died at 92. And as Leanne Young reports, those who loved him and his music say his influence will live on.
A song capturing the spirit of Hong Kong, Below Lion Rock, one of composer Dominic Chung's favorites from his mentor. It's just one of thousands of pieces written by Joseph Koo Fai. Chung was his assistant in the 1970s.
He taught him a lot of things. Without him, I cannot get into this profession.
Chung watched his bosses rise to fame. Koo was a hitmaker, writing songs for nearly every Hong Kong singer of note from the 70s into the 90s, scoring countless numbers of films and television shows.
I think everybody will remember him as the godfather of Chinese popular songs in Hong Kong.
Koo studied music on a scholarship in Boston at the famous Berklee College of Music and brought Western stylings to Cantonese music, creating a new genre. It was music that Alan Lau grew up listening to.
He was my biggest influence, and I'm sure this is a monumental loss to anyone who I think speaks Cantonese, or definitely any Hong Konger around the world.
He says Koo inspired him to move from Vancouver to Hong Kong to pursue music, and it all came full circle when he was asked to perform at Koo's sold-out tribute concert in 2015.
And so I played the very, very last note on piano in that final concert. I will always remember that. That was my little gift to him.
Koo was responsible for some of singer Annabelle Louis' success, writing 3 original songs for her, but her favorite of all of his, a tune about pride in being Chinese.
做個勇敢中國人，熱血決心抵抗敵人. This is one of my favorite.
Koo was recognized in Hong Kong with medals and honorary doctorates. But in a statement, his family said the spotlight wasn't his natural habitat, saying their father was shy, a man of few words but understated elegance, something Chung recalls fondly.
You know, in our field, there are lots of gossipings, lots of rumors, and he never involved in such kind of things. Even when you criticize anybody in front of him, he would say, "Oh, really? Oh, how can it be?" And this is his only answer.
The two remained friends until the end, Chung and his mentor both immigrating to Vancouver. Joseph Koo was 92. Leanne Young, CBC News, Richmond.
Canada celebrated its first National Ribbon Skirt Day today. It began after an Indigenous student in Saskatchewan named Isabella Kulak wore a ribbon skirt to a formal day in 2020. School staff told her it wasn't considered formal wear, sparking a national conversation. We spoke with Jolene Mitten, an Indigenous fashion entrepreneur, to explain the meaning of the ribbon skirt.
Hi, my name is Jolene Mitten. I am Cree from the Sawridge Nation. I am the founder of Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week, and I'm a community support worker in East Van. For me, Ribbon Skirt Day means to celebrate our resilience, the beauty of our culture, and dressing for the next generation. I made this skirt in 2022. It represents the medicine wheel, the 4 directions, balance. It's definitely very urban and contemporary, which is something I like. I'm an urban Indigenous person. Growing up in East Van, it kind of felt like a little bit of a war zone sometimes when we were younger. There is a bit of teachings when it comes in involved with ribbon skirts, colors mean things, and each nation has their own teachings. I was taught by Roxanne Tatus from Saskatchewan, and she said that anyone can wear a ribbon skirt. I would say don't take up too much space though, if you are a non-Indigenous person, and if you're working in Indigenous community and you're going to ceremony, I would say that that's okay, but I wouldn't just wear a ribbon skirt just to wear it. I would just definitely make sure that you're working within community and you're a good ally.
One more to go. Canada's junior men's hockey team are heading to the gold medal match in Halifax. More on the North Vancouver Phenom leading them there after this. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. A PEI dancer was crushed when the COVID pandemic spoiled her chance to attend a prestigious dance school in Ontario 2 years ago. But once the provincial borders opened up, she auditioned again, and she won a spot.
Whenever I step on stage, it just feels like my heart is having fireworks. I'm in the zone, and it's just adrenaline. It's just so awesome. I just love dancing so much. Back when I was 7, my best friend at the time was we don't spend enough time at school together. You should dance, and then you can dance with me. So I was sure, you know what, Mom, sign me up for dance. And that kind of just snowballed into now. So she always jokes that if I become a professional dancer, she takes credit for it. So. A month ago, I auditioned for Quinte Ballet School, and I got in, and I also got in for the full year. So for the summer program I'd be going to, it's about 4 weeks, and I would go and I would do ballet and jazz and lyrical and modern, flamenco, hip hop. So yeah, it would I'd live in the dorms in Ontario and just dance all day and have fun. I usually do jazz, acro, lyrical, contemporary. I like acro. Acro is probably my favorite. I just like it. It's fun to bend around and stuff. Acro, so it's acrobatics. So it's gymnastics and dance kind of mixed together. So it's upside down stuff and flips and tumbling, and then dancing and turns and jumps. I know I don't want dance to be my main career, but I definitely want to continue it when I'm older, even just as like a side thing or like just teaching, because dance is just such a big part of my life. And I just love dancing so much.
Canada's junior men's hockey team is off to another gold medal match.
He's a back across. Fentanyl shoots. That's blocked. Campbell a chance. Scores. It's 5-2 Canada.
Cheers erupted in Halifax as Brent Clark sent one top shelf. The U.S. in this game actually took an early 2-0 lead, but the Canadians answered back with 4 straight in front of a very loud crowd in Halifax earlier today. 17-year-old North Vancouver native Connor Bedard added another goal to his record-setting turn at the Hockey Championships as Canada beat the Americans 6-2. They now face Czechia in the final tomorrow at 3 p.m. our time. After they knocked off Sweden 2-1 in overtime, Canada's only loss in the tournament came against the Czech side. Bedard's former coach has some big things to cheer for.
He's had to battle the naysayers every year since he was probably 10 years old. There's always a group of people that want to see him fail. And, you know, at this point and this week, it's just been truly, I'm just so happy for him because I've seen how hard he works. I've seen his drive. I've seen how bad he wants it. I've seen how much he loves to win. And for him to just get to execute on literally the biggest stage, I couldn't be happier for him.
There's a live shot of Harbour Centre and Grouse Mountain in the background. Brace yourself for strong winds for most of Vancouver Island, the Sunshine Coast and Lower Mainland starting tomorrow afternoon. Colette Kennedy will have your BC-wide forecast coming up.
About 500 people spent the night at YVR. Some are still sleeping, and more are being told they can expect the airport to be home for a few more nights. This choir from South Africa has been here since Sunday, and they can't get out until the 26th.
Our whole trip is ruined. We have been buying food every morning, every afternoon, every night.
Other passengers were supposed to be in Toronto now. They're still here.
We're on our way back from Hawaii. Our flight was canceled, so we were stuck there. We've been in lines. When I got in line first, I was pregnant. My kids are now 18 and 21.
Not everyone was waiting in the terminal. We spoke to one Air Canada passenger who says she's been stuck inside the airplane for half a day.
We have no food, no water. They've run out of cups now, so we have nothing. So we're gonna, even when we do get going to Toronto, we'll have no food. And we've already been here almost 12 hours sitting on this plane.
They arrive like pilgrims with the dawn, ready to worship in rare bird heaven.
No sign of the bird yet?
From Toronto and Los Angeles and Colorado they've come, drawn to the home of an astonished Noel O'Brien.
When we first looked out, there was about a dozen people. The second time we looked out, there was a couple of dozen people.
It is the hunting instinct without the kill, the goal to expand the life list, birds they've seen in their lifetime.
This is my second live bird for the year.
What was your first?
Crescent-chested warbler.
Oh, neat.
Where'd you come from?
Baker City, Oregon.
Why?
See a bird.
Then, suddenly,
That's it, right up there in the back. Look, here he comes into the hollies. He's right in the holly bush. Right in the middle of the hollies now.
the dusky thrush.
That's one of the duskiest looking thrushes I've ever seen.
It's really very similar to a robin.
This color is gorgeous.
It breeds in Siberia, winters in Japan, where it is just a common ground bird.
I think he ate a berry.
But it has never been spotted south of Alaska. It probably got blown off course.
Just ate a berry. Wow, look at that.
Now it's in Langley, duking it out with robins, protecting its feeding ground.
The person who found this bird is going to be an incredible celebrity. People, who know him 20 years from now are going to be, remember that day you found the dusky thrush?
That man, John Ireland, was doing the Christmas bird count when he spotted something out of place in a residential holly bush. He's modest.
Just pure luck, really.
That's it. That's it.
But there is reason to fear that such incompetent migrators may become more common.
We're modifying their habitat through habitat destruction and urbanization, pollution, global warming. I think we're going to see a lot more of this.
There he goes. He's back into the cedars.
Was it worth it?
It just enriches the soul when you put your binoculars on that bird and you've got one more bird.
Praise the Lord that I've had a look at it.
This lost bird is unlikely to ever get home. We'll never know. And it will never know that it made birders' hearts soar the day they saw the dusky thrush. Eve Savory, CBC News, Langley, BC.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Johanna is away tonight, so meteorologist Colette Kennedy has our BC-wide weather forecast, and that comes with some wind warnings. Colette.
Thanks, Dan. Well, after a pretty nice day, and you'll see from the extended forecast, the nicest one we're going to be seeing for a little while yet, as this next round pushes in towards the west coast of the U.S., but of course having an impact as well across British Columbia. So what we're talking about as this begins to move in comes in waves, lighter at first, so the lighter showers moving in. 5 degrees tonight, mild temperatures do push in with this system, 9 degrees for tomorrow, but it's late day tomorrow where I expect it to become more organized and we get more of a push of some heavier rain. So think more towards Thursday night and into Friday, periods of rainfall then. Very, very strong wind field with this system as it moves through. So how sound, the wind warning in that region for tonight, 70 to 90 kilometers an hour, some of the gusts, but just keeping in mind that elsewhere we'll be seeing some stronger wind gusts as well, including for the lower mainland. So something to watch out for as we move forward in time is that we're going to be seeing a series of areas of low pressure kind of circulating out there, and then we'll watch towards the weekend how these move in, but we may have more waves then of more organized rainfall. And in terms of the amounts that we're going to be looking at for the outer regions of Vancouver Island, so western sections, yes, showing 50 or just over for Tofino, but as we get past Friday towards Saturday, locally there could be some areas with double that, so close to 100 millimeters. It's more of a 10 to 20 millimeter event that we'll be seeing for the lower mainland, or certainly for downtown Vancouver, to the west. I think we may get those amounts a little bit heavier than that. Across the province, looking at the range, -5, a chance for some flurries, Prince George, but you might have some sunny breaks in there as well. Also some lighter showers into Prince Rupert, more significant stuff further south, and then into the interior. Again, that ridge, that upper ridge is kind of hanging in there, and so that's protecting you a little bit through that region. Let me back out of the way and you could just get an idea of what's happening over the next several days. I think you see it. Yep, a lot of rain in the forecast, at times heavier and more intense, like Friday and Monday, but also those temperatures, Dan, remaining on the mild side above seasonal.
Okay, thank you, Colette. And that is your late news for Wednesday. Thank you for joining us. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. I will be your host at 6 p.m. tomorrow and Friday, so we'll see you then. Good night.